Welcome everyone to the January Austin Energy Green Building Seminar. This topic today is 2021 IECC updates. I'm going to start just by going through some announcements that we've got upcoming events and things going on. So first, we've got the Go Green Tour, which we've recently collaborated with the AIA, local AIA chapter and the Austin Foundation for Architecture to create this online tour of sustainable buildings throughout town. So you can go to guide-to-austinarchitecture.com to go through this tour. It gives you information and background on lots of different buildings throughout town. We've got LEED certified projects, AHEB certified projects, site certified park, lots of good stuff there. Great to do while we are in stage 5 again, if you want to be a little bit more safe. But you can also go visit a lot of these sites yourself, such as the one on the left, the right there. But that's something interesting to do that's going on right now. We do have upcoming seminars scheduled for March and Green by Design in April. March 22nd, the topic right now is resiliency insights, so that should be really interesting. Resiliency is just a great topic, and there's lots to cover there. And then in April, on the 17th, 14th, and 21st, we have regularly scheduled Green by Design, which I believe will still be being held virtually. If you want more information, go to the Learning Connect page of greenbuilding.austinenergy.com. So right now, the commercial team is going through a renovation process of the commercial ratings, the commercial AHEB rating. If you want to sign up to be a stakeholder for that and receive updates or participate in the process, you can email us at ahebcommercial@austinenergy.com. That'll be the way to stay in touch and participate in our development process. So that's ongoing right now, and it's to kind of realign our commercial rating with the climate equity plan and other city initiatives and goals. So this seminar is certified with continuing education credits. You should be able to apply for those yourself through information you received from us. We've got LEED A and AA and AICP certifications for this. Should be 2 hours. And then a friendly reminder, if you have questions throughout the meeting, we will be moderating those, answering them as we can, and responding to them at the end of each of our presentations. So, but make sure to use the Q&A down here on the bottom ribbon, not the chat. Use the Q&A so you can direct it towards a specific person, or just the system formats it in a much better way for us to keep track of what has been answered and what has not been answered in the Q&A section rather than the chat. So please do so there. So now we're going to get started with our seminar itself, 2021 IECC updates. My name is Garrett Jaynes. I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm an engineer here with the commercial group in Austin Energy Green Building. Also with us, we've got Patricia Chawla, Mitchell Tolbert, and Chris Ruddell. And I'll introduce them as we go through each of our presentations. So I'm going to go ahead and share this. All right, so everybody should be able to see my first slide here. We'll be able to get started. So I'm going to go, my name, Alex, I said my name is Garrett Jaynes. I'm an engineer with Austin Energy Green Building. I'm going to go over the commercial provisions to the 2021 IECC and some major changes that we saw from the 2015 IECC that we adopted a while back. So this is meant to be kind of on the high level of things. But I'm glad to entertain any questions you have at the end. So just keep those or answer them, ask them in the Q&A box, please. So we're going to do a little bit of background, talk about some high-level changes, hit the main highlights from each section, talk about the appendices and local amendments that we still have adopted here in Austin. So first and foremost, let's talk about ICC and IECC. I know some people may be more familiar with one or the other of those acronyms. International Code Council, that's the group that develops model codes on a 3-year cycle. The IECC is included in that. So the International Energy Conservation Code, which we're talking about today, regulates the design and construction of buildings for the effective use and conservation of energy over the useful life of each building. The intent and scope of the Energy Code is to conserve that energy, but change is coming. The scope and intent have been updated by the ICC board for the 2024 IECC to incorporate more climate-reducing code measures. And additionally, the adoption process is also changed to gather more input from stakeholders and allow for more time to discuss the proposed code, and that is going on right now. So we've got 2 of the people on this call are voting members on subcommittees, and then we've got at least 3 of us are final voting members for the final code adoption process. So we've got lots of representation here on the call and probably in the room. So welcome to everyone. And right now, the way you can participate is participating in the public meetings that are going on right now for each of the residential and commercial subcommittees. Those are open to the public. You can go to iccsafe.org to sign up for those updates or become an interested party to receive updates about a specific group if you're interested in doing so. If there are issues that you are majorly concerned with or want to espouse your opinion on, that sort of thing, you can still do that at this time with that at this link. So the International Energy Conservation Code 2021, the City of Austin adopted this on September 1st of last year. The trigger for this being effective for your project is if you've submitted a commercial plan review application on September 1st, 2021 or forward, then you will be on the new 2021 IECC and all of the other ICOs that we adopted on that date. So we adopted everything, not just the IECC, like building code, mechanical code, electrical code, all that is new starting on September 1st. Specifically for the IECC, the idea is here to have fewer amendments than we had in the 2015 IECC, the City of Austin amendments. There are quite a few less than there were before. And then just a high level of what the savings are over the previous version of code. We've got like a little bit less than 5 and 4.5% in site energy, source energy, and energy cost savings over the 2016 ASHRAE 90.1, which was one code cycle that we didn't adopt. But that's just how the Department of Energy is showing progression from one to another. So there's actually a larger change over what the City of Austin had previously adopted in 2015 IECC and 2013 90.1 than I've listed here, but this is the data that's available for us since we skipped a code year. So some high-level changes that I wanted to discuss. So these are also kind of just starting in different places in the code, but high-level things. Thermal envelope certificate. So this is C401.3. This is new in commercial. It was previously in the residential code. It is just stating that you have to permanently affix your envelope information to a place within your building somewhere. So somebody coming along later in the life of the building can go to this specific area and say, like, this is the makeup of the walls, these are new values of the windows, this is SHGC of the windows, so that all the information that you can't really see once you've got your wall constructed is available to building management or whoever may need to see it. Just good to have that in place. There also is a new alternative compliance approved by a code official. HERS rating is allowed in dwelling units in R2 occupancy. So that is new. So that is, the HERS rating is the proprietary version of an energy rating index compliance alternative. So that's something that's previously been in the residential code and now is an option for commercial R2 occupancies, non-transient hotels and motels, apartments, live and work units, vacation timeshare properties, and a few others. So that is another interesting development. And then the really big thing is the change of section C406, the additional energy efficiency package options, which I'll talk about in more detail in a bit. That was probably one of the larger changes between the 2015 and 2021 IECC that it's going to be just really obvious if you haven't seen it yet. So yeah, I'm just interested to talk about that today. And then on the right here, we just have the different methods of energy code compliance. Actually, 90.1 is now available as a code compliance path at a appendix G model, which it previously was not. So another good thing to keep in mind there are now 3 paths generally: the prescriptive path, total building performance, C407, and IECC, or the ASHRAE 90.1 appendix G model. So C406, previously this was just a few options, such as like additional lighting efficiency, additional HVAC efficiency. Now we have a number of tables based on the IBC occupancy type of your building, which would be like business, residential, institutional, educational, mercantile, all those different occupancy types. And based on your building occupancy type, you can select from a number of additional efficiency options that I've shown here. Here's my mouse. So for instance, if you have group B, you can do 5% cooling efficiency for 5 points. And the idea here is that you have to get 10 points for your building to meet the C406 requirements. Some of these do have caps. Some of them have the ability to get more points than is listed in this table with an equation. So there's just there are a lot more options here for projects to pursue and really target what goals they want to have for their project to better enhance the energy performance of their building. So I think it's just a much better way, and it's much more interesting and for sure than last version of code. And I also suspect it has not come out yet. The 2021 version of ComCheck is supposed to come out this quarter. We've been waiting for it. I suspect that this sort of will be incorporated as the previous versions of ComCheck include the additional efficiency package option. You will select which groups you're going for as well. If you have any tenant spaces are required to achieve 5 credits or 10 if it's like a core and shell or something. But again, it just depends on your building type. There's there's lots of options here that really increase what you can do. Generally, high-level building envelope updates. There were a few updates in the envelope prescriptive tables, the fenestration. In our climate zone, it's just really like a few things for non-swinging and garage door options in the U factor method. Nothing too huge for climate zone 2A in that respect. C402.4 did move from fixed windows to operable windows. Previously in the 2015 IECC, it was based on what direction the facade was facing. And then there were slight increases in the U factor and SHGC requirements. Air barrier testing is required for R&I in some instances now, C402.5.1.2. They must do dwelling and sleeping enclosure unit testing. Batch testing is allowed for anything greater than 8 units. And then if you're not an R or I occupancy, then you meet the thermal envelope testing through 4.2.5.3, which is another testing method. Then another thing for 4.2.5.11 interlocks. This is now in code. This was previously a City of Austin amendment to the code, where basically if you've got an opening that's greater than 40 square feet, you have to integrate that into your HVAC controls so that if you have that open, your air conditioning in that zone turns off. So that's a little bit different than we had it written in our amendment previously, but it's accomplishing the same goal. So that's good. And then another big change, more of a clarification, the definition of a wall above grade. So they added slab edges as part of that definition, which may not seem like a lot, but it's something that really captures something that should have been captured before, but is now actually being looked at. And I've got a good illustration of what this means here in the next slide. So this is a slab edge detail from the Austin Energy corporate headquarters, which we just built and are beginning to occupy now over in Miller. So on the left, we have our initial design condition, where we have a concrete slab that's extruded out in this kind of shape here, you can see. So this slab edge would be needed to consider as part of the building envelope to make sure that you're accounting for any thermal bridging that is happening from this exterior surface into the concrete, into the interior space, or however it may happen. So by counting this as a wall type here, you can account for that in your design, this is what we ended up doing. So we've got the same profile as we wanted architecturally, but now we have insulation here to act as a thermal break to prevent bridging happening in this area. So it's basically, the main idea behind this is not necessarily that you have to design your building like this. You just have to account for the fact that you have fins or exterior balconies or something like that that is not thermally broken from the rest of the slab. So any of those things that are acting like a fin or heat transfer surface will have to be taken into account in your building model or your contract. So just something to keep in mind. It doesn't seem like a lot when you read it, but it is a big change. So onto the mechanical systems. A few big things here. First, we've got the fault detection and diagnostic system. So if you've got a building that's greater than 100,000 square feet, you have to have a fault detection and diagnostic system installed, unless you're R1 or R2 occupancy. So that's going to be able to monitor performance, have 15-minute data, identify any faults, have a party that it notifies of faults, provide a recommendation for repair, and be able to transmit that to a remote location. So that it's basically like part of a controlling system that a lot of manufacturers have had for a while, but it's just putting it into code as a requirement for buildings of this size, so that can drastically decrease the cost probably of errors or overspending from equipment operating improperly. So I think it's definitely a good thing. Then we've got mechanical efficiency tables. Those have been updated to align directly with 90.1. They basically took what they had in what was in 90.1 and put it in the IECC. So that eliminates any misalignments that have been existing in the past. It also brought over a lot of other things that had previously not been captured in the IECC, such as VRF systems, computer rooms, and there's now efficiency requirements. There are now efficiency requirements for dedicated outdoor air systems, which there previously were not in the IECC. So just another new thing to watch for as you're designing your mechanical systems. And then obviously there are some, in some categories, there are some efficiency increases, but not too many really, especially, well, in systems that we see a lot of times, there's not as many as I expected there to be. There is also a new requirement for energy recovery systems. So they have specific requirements for transient dwelling or non-transient dwelling units and any space that is not a non-transient dwelling unit. And these also do interplay some with the economizer requirements. It gets a little bit complicated in how they define how or what size building needs these energy recovery systems. So I don't have a lot of information in my PowerPoint about that right now because it's like you can go into a whole hour-long conversation just about that. But it is another new item. And we've also got guest room setback, C4 3.7.6. So this is for hotels, motels. Basically, the system has to automatically set 4 degrees heating or cooling, depending on what mode the system is in, after 30 minutes of being unoccupied. When the room is unrented, rooms have to go to set points of 80 or 60 if it's cooled or heated. The other thing here is that a networked control system, meaning that the front desk or management of the building has access to know when a room is occupied or unoccupied, or a key card system, both meet the requirements of this provision. So another thing that has also been in play in a lot of buildings recently, but it's now in code. Water heating, there were not a lot of changes in water heating from 15 to 21. There just were some updates here on how you calculate the volume restriction for your hot water pipe length. Really, this is about saving water. So you've got either a circulation pump or you've sized your pipes in such a way so that you're not running a lot of water to get hot water to where you want it to be, basically. So it's meant to reduce the running of water just to get water hot in your shower or what have you. And then there are two different table requirements here that you can use either one of these depending on which pipe sizes you're using or type of pipe to calculate the volume. In the lighting and power section, parking garage lighting control, we've got a new section here on parking garage lighting. So that's lighting controlled with occupancy sensors or time switch controls. The controls have to be able to reduce to 30% of power after 20 minutes. There are provisions for eye adaptation at entrances and exits. And then there's also different requirements for being within 20 feet of a perimeter wall opening, which you have to have a 50% reduction in daylight sensing areas or time switch controls. Exterior lighting power allowance 405.5.2 updated the section number here, and they added some clarifications for the calculations there as well. And allowances for each zone were reduced in the 2018 IECC, and they've not changed from that, so they're just a little bit different than what was in the 2015 IECC that we adopted. But now, not any change from 2018 to 2021 there. Similarly for electrical transformer efficiency, there were just a few changes there, nothing just in one category in the table that is 405.7. Then automatic receptacle control, this was a big add to the code, 405.11. So this is where you've got split controlled receptacles or that you have located controlled and uncontrolled receptacles within 12 inches of a controlled receptacle. To meet this, you can have a scheduled system, occupancy sensor, or any other automated signal. The big thing is that these controls must be hardwired, and plug-in control devices are not allowed. The other interesting note about automatic receptacle control is that it exists in the IECC, but it was omitted out of ASHRAE 90.1 2019. So something to keep in mind if you're trying to decide which code you want to use as your compliance path. And then for buildings that are 25,000 square feet, gross condition floor area or more, there are new requirements for energy monitoring, which you have to provide 15-minute data for up to 3 years, unless you're an R2 or a tenant with less than 5,000 square feet of floor area. And then there are there's a table that signifies which end-use chapter monitor, which are total HVAC, interior lighting, exterior lighting, plug loads, process loads, and any other load that is greater than a certain amount. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. So there were two main appendices that were in the 2021 IECC. There was a solar ready appendix and the zero energy appendix. The City of Austin adopted the solar ready appendix, Appendix CB. We did not adopt the zero energy appendix. So for solar ready, that just means that your roof area has to be free from obstructions, not less than 5 pounds per square foot dead load, in your roof calculations. The system must be, the area must be ready for the system, and you've got to have space reserved in your service panel for solar. So that's probably the biggest thing there. Yeah, but we didn't adopt the zero energy appendix. It's still in the book. You can look at it, but we did not adopt it here. And then onto our local amendments. So like I was saying earlier, the idea behind this code adoption cycle was to reduce the amount of amendments we had. So we did retire some previously been in place, such as having a registered design professional, interlocking systems with like an opening or door with the HVAC, because that's now in code. We also retired our commissioning amendment. We retained the insulation encapsulation amendment, our ventilation filtration at MERS 6. We did retain some additional exemptions for window performance, because there are a few parts of town that have an overlay where you have a slightly different requirement to activate the street. So that's a separate exemption there. We also have a few other demand response amendments, roofing amendment for, I believe it's the SRI requirements, and water heater timers as an alternative for Group R. And then do have some additional resources. You can view the 2021 IECC online. You don't have to own the book or anything. It's at this link, iecc.org/content. You can go there. You can Google 2021 IECC, and it should pop right up. Then our local limits can be found in the building technical codes from the austin.texas.gov page. Should be pretty simple to navigate to. But that's a high level overview of the new codes. I'd be glad to take a couple of questions right now. If we've got any in the chat. I've not been watching. Let's see. So we've got a question from Smith Holt that says, that example is for an upper story. Assume this applies to slab on grade. I'm assuming that you're talking about the slab edge detail that I was showing. Yes. So that definition of a wall above grade, if it's a wall above grade, then that this applies. So yeah, if it's a wall above grade, then and there's a slab edge, then it has to be counted in your envelope conditions. I do not know when so the other question is, would happen to know when the IECC 2021 option might be available in ComCheck. I do not know, other than that it says on their website that it's going to be available in Q1 of 2022, which we're currently in. So it could be any day now, all the way, I guess, to February or March. I'm checking in their website about once a week. You can Google, if you just Google ComCheck, it'll be the first thing that comes up. They say on their website also right now to use ASHRAE 2019 or ASHRAE 90.1 2019 is available on the ComCheck website. So if you want to use that, you can do so. Does the solar, the next question is, let's see. Does the solar ready requirement apply to existing building renovation? I'm actually not sure of that. I can reach back out to you.
I can answer that one.
Oh, sure.
Or later. Yes, it could. If it exceeds 50% of the roof area, you have to take it into account. So that it's based on in the scope and breadth of your proposed remodel or work.
Thanks, Mitchell.
Yes, sir.
Can you summarize the compliance paths again? So I'm assuming you're referring to the overall compliance path for energy code. So we've got under the 401.2.1 International Energy Conservation Code, you've got prescriptive compliance or total building performance, it's C407, which is a energy model, or you can use ASHRAE 90.1 2019, which is also a different version of energy. So these are two different, this is an energy cost budget method, and this is you can use an Appendix G energy model here as well, which was not the case previously. Appendix G can now be used for energy code compliance. I'm going to do a quick term check. It's 12. I think I should probably pass it on to Mitchell now. He's going to stay on schedule, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Taj, if you want to make Mitchell a presenter now, I'll go ahead and introduce him. Okay. So our next speaker is Mitchell Tolbert. Mitchell is a commercial plan review manager at Development Services Division. He has over 24 years of experience in the electrical trade. He holds a master electrician license for the state of Texas, certified building official, electrical code expert, and residential building and electrical inspector certifications. So take it away, Mitchell. And I will say, we've noted your questions in the Q&A, so if we haven't gotten to it yet, we will endeavor to do so as we continue here.
All right. Well, thank you. Let me get my bearings here just 1 second and get my camera on. Well, we'll get started with the presentation. Good afternoon, everyone, or well, good morning / afternoon, everybody. I am the commercial manager for commercial projects that come through Austin or through City of Austin and DSD. And I wanted to first start off by sharing kind of a recent change we'd had with the staff that allows you to kind of understand exactly what the layout is and who it is that would be reviewing your plans and kind of what that organization looks like. That is the following. If you can you see my presentation? All right. So we ultimately previously commercial plan reviews was broken out into discipline groups. So we had a group that was all building and a group that was MEP. We recently went through a change in the structure and have broken it out into two separate sections now that resemble a team of reviewers that approach or reviews as a group. So now we have a team one, which is Deborah Johnson is the supervisor for that group. And that's a complete group of building reviewers, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and structural that integrate into a unit. And then Mark McClendon is the second group or the second team that has a full group within his supervision as well. That has allowed us to kind of keep a project in one group or the other and gives us a little bit better opportunities to help it work through the process. Thank you for your presentation, Garrett. It was very complete, and it took quite a few of the things that I was going to touch on in a deeper manner. So I think in most of you that are watching are probably be more interested in specifically items that are potentially ready to submit or will be submitted soon, and whether or not we're going to review to those items. And so I'm going to kind of give an overview or a brief overview of the process and what we're doing with commercial plan review in regards to the IECC. As he mentioned, council adopted the 2021, and as of September 1st, if your project was submitted on or after that date, it would be required to comply with the 2021 IECC standards. The prior to that adoption, we really spent quite a bit of effort in looking at all of the different amendments that we had locally and really digging into each one of them. We reduced quite a bit of the local amendments that we had and returned to the model code or the root language contained within the model code wherever practically possible. And so there were a few things that we kept that we felt were more beneficial to the groups or to the city, more so than what the code said. So those amendments were kept. And I'll cover a little bit more detail of that here in just a second. The local amendments are still quite lengthy, 35 some odd pages. I will make this presentation available for folks so that you'll be able to click on these active links. But the local amendments for the IECC are still pretty exhaustive. There's quite a few sections that were deleted, but I want to caution you to be careful of the word deleted. It may list it as a deleted item, but it didn't necessarily go away. What it really means is that we amended or we altered that particular item or section and replaced it with our local amendment. So when you're looking at C402.3, or which is the reflective or the rooftop issue reflectabilities, and then 402.4.3 fenestration, and then 405.2, and all the ones that are listed as being deleted, those aren't deleted, they're just modified and replaced with a updated local amendment section. We will be incorporating quite a few of the items that have been changed or amended into the building criteria manual in the next 12 months or so. A lot of times with the IECC, staff is really, last year, knowing that the change was going to be significant with IECC, we really focused, and deliberately trained a lot of the staff in the IECC so that when we got the change and had to start reviewing it, we'd be up to standards on it. Within our group, when we're talking about an energy review, there's actually 3 separate disciplines that each have a part of this. So it's really reviewed by, or each project is reviewed by 3 different disciplines for energy compliance. That's going to be building, mechanical, and electrical. So each one of those, you may receive comments from a different one of those 3 disciplines regarding those specific items. And because of the changes from 2015 to effectively the 2019 90.1, or we're talking about the 2021, those can be pretty detailed. And so trying to answer a lot of specific questions about a project through email is usually pretty difficult. So we do make a available product called the PPR, and that's a pre-plan review meeting. So if you're about to submit a project and you have not yet done so, that is available to you as a opportunity to sit down with specific discipline review groups or reviewers so that you can walk through the items that you intend to submit as far as your energy or for that matter, any of your other discipline questions. And those are billed by the hour by the discipline, so you can invite whomever or whatever disciplines you'd like to those meetings. It's really been proven to be a very effective way to get a lot of questions answered in a direct format where you've got a live meeting occurring. And so if you've already submitted and you currently have a project that's in review, we have a paid consultation. You can also meet with reviewers, but it's not a specific reviewer if you sign up through what we call time trade. So we have a free appointment available that's lasts in duration 20 minutes. But most of the time, a lot of the IECC items are pretty complex and usually take a little bit more time than that. So if you feel like those are going to be longer or more complicated questions that you might have, you might request a paid consultation. And those consultations are specifically with a reviewer that you really want to, that's reviewing your project. But that would be during or after you've submitted your application to a commercial plan review. As he mentioned, so there is not a 2021 ComCheck version out. I think what I've last seen was June or July, I thought was the target date, Garrett, but we're monitoring it every day as well. In the interim, to try to give a compliance path or total building performance, excuse me, pathway for you, we are accepting the web version of ComCheck allows you to use the ASHRAE 90.1 2019 standard, which is the underpinnings of a lot of the performance items in the 2021 IECC. And so if you have not done that, you can't use it on your computer, or you can't download it, but you can use the web version of it. And it will give you options to go through and choose the 2019 standard. And so if you can see that slide there in the top left-hand corner, you'll see that it offers that as an option. Of course, the state would be Texas, city would be Austin. And this would allow you to do your total building performance model and then submit that to us. And we are accepting those as far as the base compliance items. And that is all that I really have as far as the overview goes. I'm sure there are quite a few questions. We'll go back, and there was a question being asked about the commissioning. And so the commissioning is now part of the 2021 IECC. So it didn't go away. It just was modified a little bit. Do we have any questions?
Mitchell, would you like us to look in the Q&A box and find some that seem to be relevant to,
Yeah.
to yours? Okay. Let's see here.
Okay, there we went. Okay, it came back once I stopped sharing.
Okay, you see them? Okay.
I will make my presentation available as well with the links and whatnot. And encourage you, we do have a person that is responsible for responding to questions that are general about the IECC. And so if you would like, I'll post that contact detail here at the end of the meeting. Let's see, upper story. And so I think we answered the 2021 IECC option. Solar rotor requirement applied to existing building renovations. So yes, it does where you're modifying or doing work that would require more than 50% of the roof line or exterior to be remodeled. Answered the one about the commissioning requirement. I'm not sure why the net zero wasn't adopted. I know the council did have an initiative for a carbon neutral proposal, but I'm not sure why that wasn't adopted. Most likely because of the cost and the amount of time that was given between the adoption, and so that would have been quite a bit to expect to have that compliance at that point. Let's see. Water heater amendments still favor gas-fired over electric. So there was a recent change in the state legislature that basically prevented anyone from requiring a specific type of utility or energy source be used, which effectively means that the gas versus electric was really now a design or a owner option and not one that we could regulate. However, if the gas fired is not used and it's electric, then the timers are definitely required, and that's part of the local amendments. Let's see. 50% determined by the IECC definitions. I believe so. I'll have to go back and check to see, but if not, it does follow in line with the IECC, which is the International Existing Building Code, which has some levels of alteration that come into play. And one of those key points is a level 3 alteration, which is defined as a 50% of the area being remodeled or reconstructed. Will it be an overview of the residential code changes? I'm not sure about that. I'll have to defer that back.
That will be me next after you.
Okay, all right. All right, and the local amendment's going to be made available to clarify changes. So the local amendments, that link is provided in my presentation. That'll take you to the Muni Code library that does have the current amendments posted and available. Process for showing compliance with the energy code to the city when the project is also under the AEGB scope. Patricia, do you have any input on that one? Or, I mean, we're still going to require compliance to be submitted with our group for the building performance. How does that integrate with your green building?
So with the commercial program, if a project is going through the green building project program as well, we have a separate group that reviews energy models for the green building rating, and then we also work with the people at DSD to make sure that those are code compliance models. So you basically would submit that model as part of your green building review, and we would look at it and work with DSD. So same process has been going in the past.
Okay. The meeting requirements, so that one's a developing item. We're aware of it. We are reviewing for it. That would be a question that you're going to want to ask to speak to a reviewer specific about your project, because there are some pretty restrictive metering requirements for HVAC, electrical, and whatnot. So those items, as Garrett had kind of briefly touched on, are a concern that people are asking quite a few questions about. We have not determined at this point that we are not going to require a particular part of the IECC. So in other words, we have adopted it when we are reviewing it for the standards that are listed in the 2021 IECC, as well as the local amendments or the modified items that are from the IECC for local amendments. Paid consultation available only once you're submitted for site plan review. So site plan review is the land review. Ours is the commercial building or structures that are above ground review. You can do a paid consultation either before or during. It's just called a different item. So the PPR occurs prior to anything being submitted. So we don't have a folder for it for your project yet. And so we have to treat it a little bit differently. But the cost and the manner of doing that or the paid consultation are very similar. So once it's been created and we've had a reviewers assigned to it, then you're asking specifically for certain reviewers. Prior to that, though, we're going to give you just a discipline reviewer based on what disciplines you're asking to attend that meeting. So it could be prior or during. ComCheck, no longer required to be signed, sealed by registered professional. I believe that is well. It has to be signed by a registered professional, but I don't believe that we're requiring it to be sealed. I think that answers that question. That's a good question about use the word modified in lieu of delete for modified code. That's way above my level, but what I will do is take that suggestion and forward that up the executive group and tell them that is a good suggestion. So thank you for that. The forms for envelope commissioning that are required to be submitted. Austin, sorry about that. There are some envelope commissioning requirements. Those are required to be submitted after the project is substantially complete. I think there's a time limit of 90 days after the final to be submitted. Those generally get submitted to your inspector in the field and then saved in the folder for whatever your discipline review discipline or your building permit is. We used to have some forms that we actively use. I'll have to check back with inspections to see if they're still using those, or if they've adopted their own, or if they allow for anything else. So I'll have to get back to you on that answer. And I think that's all of the questions. Did I miss any, Patricia or Garrett?
I think you've gotten them all. I've tried to, everybody, notate, answered on air, and tried to get the answer that Mitchell or Garrett has supplied. Some of them were a little bit above my head or a little too fast for me. So they just say answered on air, but the recording will be available later on. Check your email within a week or so, and you can review those answers again.
I'll type up my answers as you're going through your presentation so that they'll at least have some of that there to fill in the gaps. Thank you all. Contact information for specific questions. If you are interested in either the PPR or the PRC, that's the pre-plan review or the paid consultation review meeting, those would be requested through Expedited. There's a form online for that that we have, and I'll make that form available, both of those forms available. During a review, though, those go through our commercial intake group as a request, and they're signed off by or agreed to by the specific reviewers that you're asking to see. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks, Mitchell. So our next speaker Patricia Chawla, is going to go through residential energy code, which was, so with that, we're going to do that. We are going to do that right now. So get ready. Patricia has a Bachelor's of Science in Physics from the University of Texas at Dallas and a Master of Environmental Science from the University of Oklahoma. She has been in the Austin Energy Green Building Group for 5 years. Currently, Patricia rates single-family and multifamily projects and manages residential energy code adoption for the city of Austin. Patricia has worked in the energy efficiency and green building industry for over 10 years. Take it away, Pat.
So yeah, hello, my name is Patricia, like Garrett was letting you know. I'm a conservation program coordinator at Austin Energy Green Building, and you've all heard about the commercial energy code updates just now from Mitchell and Garrett. And then now we're going to move over to the other side of the book into residential, which I know was one of the questions there. So thank you for your patience in getting to residential, and we'll get started. So I know there was a long holiday break, and for some of you, an introduction, just to a quick primer on the structure of the residential IECC. We have a lot more pathways of compliance, and it gets a little confusing when you're not in that world all the time. So we'll just give like I said, a quick update or introduction to that. Then I'll dive into those 2021 residential updates, and then next steps and a Q&A session like the speakers before me. And before we get too far, I did want to point out, I like this slide. I wanted to discuss briefly about leveraging partnerships. Homes and other buildings in Austin aren't just built by the builder. It's multiple groups that go into building and working together to get the project done. So the architects, the builders, the trades, the third parties, consultants, all those kinds of people work together to get the project done. So while you're working with them and everyone has a role to play, there's also this extra role of consulting. Each of these different groups have their expertise and integrate into the project to help out. So like energy code testers and HERS raters, they often do energy modeling, which can help with your energy efficiency of the project and achieving better energy efficiency, oftentimes better comfort for the homeowners or building tenants. You know, the HVAC contractors do their manual J, which is important to right size your equipment. The trades always have good recommendations when you actually talk to them, and it's not just go time. But be sure to leverage those partnerships and lean in on those people, and they could be really helpful. I've included our green building website and these building technical codes on the city's website there for reference to us. So again, that structure and that reminder of how that residential IECC works. So like, I think Garrett had a similar slide, but these are the IECC book is here. And then for the residential side, the IECC, a copy of that is also in the IRC in chapter 11. So you can access the energy code in 2 different books. Kind of depends on how much of a library you want to be keeping around in the car. as you're driving to site or to the office. But the IECC does govern, the residential IECC does govern 1 and 2 family dwellings and multiple single family dwellings like townhomes, as well as group R2, 3, and 4 buildings. And then here in Austin, we've amended it so that includes 4 stories or less above grade plane. In the book itself, it's just 3 stories, but we've amended to 4 stories because the construction type is really not that much different between 3 and 4. They're using the same, they all use a wood. Now podium is getting a bit more popular, but that's generally a lot more closer to construction type than between a 4-story and a high-rise. Local amendments, as mentioned before, the ICC develops the model code, which serves as a baseline for jurisdictions wanting to adopt. It's up to the local jurisdiction to amend based on the local goals and considerations for the community. Luckily here in Texas, cities are allowed to adopt more stringent versions of the published code. That is not the same in a lot of states throughout the United States. They cannot adopt anything more stringent than what the state has required or has adopted. And then there are states that do not have a state energy code. So chapters 1 through 3 are kind of the beginner stuff, as it probably seems like it should be, but they give you the scope and administration of the residential IECC, like definitions, when the IECC can be used, what kind of things should be in the plan documents, these kinds of things. The image on the right there is a climate zone map. That's in the book as well, so that way energy code requirements do differ between climate zones. We are in climate zone 2 down there in the red part, while say like further north, north of Waco, it's climate zone 3. Texas big state, we got 3 climate zones. Then we jump into chapter 4, which gets into the, I'm vegetarian, so it's not the meat, but the potatoes of the code, where it gives you the actual requirements of what you're supposed to do. And there are 3 main paths of compliance. The energy code allows a lot of flexibility in compliance. It's been like that for a long time. I think initially they were all prescriptive, just like the other codes, but soon after there was a lot of amendments to allow a lot more flexibility. So there is a 4th path that's not listed here, but we would need to move to a Mai Tai part of the country to be able to use it, and that would be the tropical path. That sounds really good these days where it's really cold, at least for me, but we have to stay here in Austin for now. It makes it a little bit more confusing, but in the prescriptive path, there is like an additional option allowed. It's called the UA alternative. That allows a little bit more flexibility for the envelope items, just because, you know, in a house, not all windows are all the same U factors and SHGCs, or even the walls, because you might have a plumbing wall versus a regular wall or something like that. So it just gives a little bit more flexibility to make sure that you're still in compliance. So that prescriptive path is more like the other codes. If it's in your work scope, you got to do it. Do it exactly what it says. The performance path allows some trade-offs. So here in Austin, we do allow a mechanical trade-off, but you can trade off, like say you have really great walls, but you wanted to stick with those fancy windows, or vice versa. You wanted to do something else in the house and trade it off for the other part of the house. So you can put that into an energy model, and residential energy models are a whole lot easier than commercial ones, and see if you're still passing code or what kind of energy efficiency gains you're getting there. Now the ERI path, you see that has a lot more paths in the picture, and that's because it allows even more trade-offs. You can trade off with like your appliances and some lighting stuff, and it does allow a little bit of a trade-off with your solar if you're installing that, but it's very limited and a much more stringent path to follow because it does allow more trade-offs for you. So it's a little bit harder. And if you've done HERS ratings in the past, that was kind of the basis to this ERI path, because the HERS rating is a proprietary standard. There gets to be a divergence in the ERI and HERS after ERI is adopted each code cycle, but it's a very similar pathway. I should say mandatory means mandatory regardless of compliance path. So there are several code items that are mandatory regardless of the compliance path. And in the previous editions of the code, they were identified in parentheses next to the code item. And then now in the 21, they've done away with that methodology. And now it's included as a title, so as a table, excuse me. And so you just go to that table and it tells you what the mandatory citations are. And here's a example screenshot of where that happens. And the table is kind of duplicated because it occurs both in the performance path and in the ERI path. So I'd let you know. Footnotes and exceptions kind of goes along with reading the fine print. And the IECC, as well as other codes, there's always footnotes and exceptions to tables and code citations. So it really is important to go ahead and read the whole thing, because it may be that something's really hard, but once you read the fine print, it becomes a little bit more manageable, and you can do that. These are just examples. Don't worry about reading them exactly, but yeah, reading those footnotes gets you sometimes things you didn't think were possible. So those remaining chapters are chapter 5, 6, and 7, which cover existing buildings, reference standards, and the Solar Ready chapter. So you can always go through there and look at those if those things apply to your project. So I should note that Austin did not adopt the Solar Ready appendix, instead that we've written that Solar Ready code into the local amendments. So look in the local amendments for the Solar Ready requirements. So getting into those 2021 changes for residential. So do note that, like I said, the presentation is being recorded and be available later on if you need to revisit any of these items. So DOE gave a similar presentation 2 years ago now, maybe, and they gave a pie chart. I'm not a big fan of pie charts, but I like this tree one. And what they did is categorize each of the code proposals that got passed into different buckets of whether it was an administrative change or had a large energy impact or not. And then I took it a step further and also bucketed if it didn't even apply to Austin, because then we don't really need to worry about it. So if you can see, by far in the 2021 residential IECC, almost 60% of the changes were administrative. And an example of that was changing 4 to 4.0. Just adding a 0.0 to something. It might be changing a word here or changing a phrase there, which didn't really change the content of the language, only clarify the language to make it, is kind of like updating the grammar almost. Make it easier to understand and easier to comply with. But there were 17% of the code items were decreasing energy, 12% had a minimal energy impact. There was a small change, more than just administrative change, but they did have a little bit of energy impact, but not a whole lot. And then again, almost 11% of them didn't even apply to Austin. They just applied to other climate zones or other areas of the country. And then there were almost 2.5% of them actually did increase energy consumption. And like Garrett was mentioning earlier, you can find the codes on ICC's website for free. There's always a free version. It doesn't let you copy and paste very easily. You have to take screenshots, but at least it's there, and in a pretty readable format. Just looking at these buckets again, you'll see a few of them in red. These items were passed into the 2021 Energy Code. However, then they were removed during an appeal process due to not being into the scope of the Energy Code, which has since been updated. So like electric readiness, again, minimal impact or NA, a code item about pilot lights, another one about hot water heaters, and lastly about EV charging and readiness. So these red ones, again, were removed on appeal, so those are not occurring in the published book. Similarly, DOE did a determination for savings on the residential IECC. We had anywhere from 8 to over 9% energy savings depended on what metric you're looking at. So 9.4% site energy savings, almost 9% source energy savings. And 2021 IECC Res Check is available and was released this past year. So you can go and look at that. I do caution you that the Res Check does not include City of Austin amendments, so it may give you a false positive of passing. And we really recommend IC3, which is a tool out of Texas A&M to determine your code compliance for the City of Austin. So diving into those changes, on the prescriptive side, there was an increase in ceiling R value requirement from 38 to 49. There were some administrative changes, such as notating continuous installation as the letter CI, providing a new option for wall outsolation. So the notation would be 0 plus 10 CI or 0 and ampersand 10 CI, so that the first number would be your cavity insulation and the second number would be your continuous insulation value. There was a change in looking at the U factor table for compliance, while the R value table as an alternative. However, I really wouldn't worry about it too much. If you're putting RX, whatever you're putting into your wall or ceiling, and it's meeting that R value table, you're good to go. That's just the one we've all got a tangible feeling of what that is. Manufacturers are labeling their products in such a way, so we know what that means, and so it's more of just the U factor is going to be used by those energy bottles. And again, like I mentioned earlier, the use of the mandatory and prescriptive labels has moved to a table format instead of being in those parentheses next to each code citation. So you can see in the local amendments, this is what it looks like. Here's the 2015 table, and here's the 2021. In the wall R value, you can see the addition of the outsolation option, 0 and 15 CI, which makes it more equivalent to our increased R values. And then the R38 to R49. Another change that we've made from stakeholder feedback was to include the footnote that has been occurring in our local amendments to allow for spray foam insulation below deck or foam insulation above deck. The footnotes still are retained, but we just put that information in the table so it was a bit more visible to everybody. It's not something per se new. That allowance was always there. Like I said, reading the fine print, reading the footnote, I just moved it into the table so it was a bit more obvious. Eave baffles and access hatches. These things are now mandatory, where before they were prescriptive items, meaning they were only mandatory if you were doing that prescriptive path. So what it means, it just gives some more detail about what installation requirements are around these two areas. You can see the ladder on the attic access ladder there on the right. That's from a manufacturer out in the hill country. So we got local people making the stuff we need. Let's use them and increase our energy efficiency in the meantime. We need to air seal the electric and communication outlet boxes. So again, a few pictures. You can use the putty pads. Those are generally pricier, so some people decide not to use those, value engineering those things out. So you can use the polyseal gun instead. Make sure you're hitting all those holes the air is going to be going through. Or you can use the NEMA OS4 boxes, which I've heard are a little pricey as well. So you got some options of how to air seal that. It's not just one option. Air barrier, air sealing, and installation table. If you ever had a question about how to comply with the energy code out in the field, this is the table for you. This is kind of a mini checklist, inspection checklist for yourself to do a quality check or to work with those energy code testers or HERS raters. They use this table a lot as well. The only difference in the black text and the blue text here is the blue text is the newer items from the 2021. The ICC website shades those a different color. But I would read through those. There were changes in the 2021. You can see all the blue. All they did was clarify how best to air seal those areas so that you're passing your blower door test, you're passing your duct blaster test. And for residential here in Austin, you're air balancing, you're getting your static pressure, you're doing your room to room, you're passing all of those tests. So this is paying attention to this table helps you pass the pop quiz at the end of construction. So that's the end part of it. And the mechanical systems area of the book, the blower door has some changes. There's an alternate calculation, an exception now for small dwellings, and small dwellings is actually pretty large, less than 1,500 square feet. This applies to multifamily and single family. So this alternative calculation allows you to use the metric of your airflow through the enclosure, the dwelling enclosure, not a volumetric calculation. So if you think that you're needing to use that, the testing forms have been issued to testers for the 2021. So if you need to use that, you work with your tester. It does involve a bit more math. So some people would rather figure a different way than do math, but it makes it a lot easier to work with, especially for those small dwellings. Duct leakage, the ResNet 380 standard is now in play. We didn't adopt the 2018 codes, and that's where the 380 standard got looped in. So that's now carrying forward. And I should say that the 380 also applies to the blower door. So there's some code language that gives better guidance for inspecting the ducts depending on the location, if you're burying them or not. And then in the published code, they removed the exception for no testing of ducts when all in conditioned space. But that's no big deal to you guys because we already did that in Austin some time ago. So you guys are already prepped up for that. Mechanical ventilation. So mechanical ventilation, or you might call it fresh air, has a little bit different terminology to different people, but testing those systems is now required, and that's coming through on the published code. So be working with your HVAC company on that, because a lot of projects use the damper controlled system, and those generally do not pull in enough fresh air, and especially if you have long ducts runs. So definitely be consulting with your HVAC company. Changes to efficacies and categories and locations in table 4361. There's a table there and how they categorized information there, changed up a little bit, made it a little bit more accessible in understanding what really was going on. Mechanical system piping installation, that's mandatory. It was mandatory before, but I guess some people could figure a way of talking themselves out of it with the building inspector. I don't know here in Austin, but in general. And so they just made that much more explicit that that's a mandatory item. Lighting, interior lighting, you need to make sure that all permanently installed lighting fixtures have to be high efficacy. And they've redefined slightly the efficacy definitions for lamps and luminaires, which again, that one's no big deal for everyone here in Austin because we already had that. We already had 100% requirement. What is new for you guys here in Austin would be the exterior lighting for low-rise multifamily. They're getting redirected to the same code item in the commercial side of the book because the installation is more like commercial than like a house. And then lastly, lighting controls. There are lighting control requirements for interior and exterior lighting. So be sure to look at that. And dimmers and occupancy sensors would be, for the interior, would be acceptable for that. Water heating, the effect of water heating distribution added to the standard reference table. And what does that mean? So Garrett was referencing that to some changes on the commercial side in that the distribution, the pipes that's carrying your hot water around, the longer the distance that the water has to travel, the more losses, heat losses it can accrue and by the time that it arrives to your sink. And in some instances, you may be turning the hot water on, but you're not sticking around to actually use it because you're busy, got to do something else, feed the dog, the kid's tugging at your leg, or, you know, something else is going on. So in the residential, they're adding in that information into the standard reference so that you can, if you are making a more compact design, you're getting credit for that. And that's what these pictures are showing and a little bit of math there, which you can see. I don't want to have to make you guys do math on a day ending in Y, but you can do it in the safety of your own home. So also this little asterisk reminded me that they did update the formula for gallons per day. There was a typo in the book, so if you got a first printing of the code book, there was a typo. So just look to the errata published on the ICC's website, and they've updated that. But it's good. I was graduating from high school the last time they changed it, so it seems like it's a good time to make a change. A big change to the 2021 IECC is something that was already occurring in the commercial side of the book, where they had all the code language of how and what you're supposed to do to comply with the energy code. And then they said, okay, you did all that, great. Now do one more thing. So now we have that in residential. And they're called additional efficiency option packages, AEOP. And they vary around a little bit in such that, remember, there's 3 paths of compliance that the residential energy code allows. So if you're doing that prescriptive path of compliance, you can either enhance your envelope, so just your UA calculation has to be 5% better. You can up that HVAC system, and they give an option for if you got gas or electric or even a ground source heat pump. You can improve your water heating situation with either a tankless gas. They don't say so in so many words, but these numbers, you know, you read between the lines and you can come up with what these specs tell you what the equipment should be. So for gas, it would need to be a tankless system. For electric, you need that heat pump water heater. And then they give you the solar water heating option as well. You can improve the duct thermal distribution system or you can improve the air sealing and ventilation system. So you have, let me back up one. You have 5 areas, 5 categories by which you can improve and pick something that works for you and your project. But what if you were doing that performance path? Well, if you're doing that performance path, you could still pick one of these things. It just wouldn't be included in the calculation for your performance path, so you don't get a double credit. Or you can just be 5% better on your energy model. But what if you pick that ERI path? Well, if you pick that one, then you just have to be 5% better on your ERI, which is generally 1 to 2 index points. So updates, going into updates on the ERI and performance paths here specific to Austin. These are the things that are kind of in blue as we go along. So again, there was updates to the standard reference table, dehumidistats, water heating, mechanical ventilation. The published code did add a backstop for the performance path, which was the 2009 IECC, but we already had the 2012 as our backstop, so we're retaining that. They updated the backstop for the ERI path and made it all kinds of complicated. So depending if you're going to have solar or not. So we've retained the backstop of the 2015 IECC, makes it much more simple. Renewables, you can add as much solar panels as you can sell to that project. However, you can only count 5% of that for compliance purposes. Like I said, there's no capital in actually installing it. You just get credit for 5% of them. And then the ERI targets for compliance moved downward for all climate zones. And for climate zone 2, that would put us at a 52, which is pretty darn low. And I'm not quite sure how they did that in comparison to the prescriptive table, but that's okay. Consulting with ResNet that develops the HERS rating and their data, we're going to stay at a 59. The average HERS rating for the Austin area was around 61. So keeping at a 59, we're still lower than the average. Austin amendments specifically, we really just carried things forward because there were so many changes happening itself in the published code. We did not put forth very many changes. Again, the changes that we did do, we moved that footnote about attic roofline insulation into the actual table so it was more visible for people to be utilizing. There was a question earlier, and this kind of gets to it. R 40354, as some of you may know, is the code in the previous amendments about gas water, when gas is in the right of way, that you can't use electric water heating. That gas right of way reference was removed. So now all that's left is that if you are using electric resistance water heating, you must use a timer, but there are exceptions that still exist. If you are using a heat pump water heater, then you don't need to worry about the timer. Or if your water heater includes demand response technologies, then you don't need to worry about the timer. Like I said, the ERI remains at 59, and the solar ready provisions, because they occurred at 2 different times for the 2015 IECC, now they're all back into one document, but there's no changes to the solar ready provisions. So what's next? ESL, referencing Texas A&M, they were to provide a stringency analysis by last August for Texas to go to the State Energy Conservation Office. The State Energy Conservation Office, SECO, is to perform a stakeholder engagement and state adoption of the 2021 IECC, for the most optimistic of us, May be by July 2022. But as time goes by, that seems less and less likely. So just stay tuned what SECO intends to do there. But they will go through some kind of stakeholder engagement process. We'll post this in the Q&A, but I believe there's an area that you can request training opportunities there. Are there any local amendments going to be made available to clarify changes? I'm not quite sure of that question. So
I've provided a link for the amendments. Is that, you think that would be enough to answer that one?
Maybe. I know this person, so maybe I'll be able to clarify later, but we went through the local amendment adoption process through last spring, us and DSD and other city departments. So the next one, since we're at the national level, we're reviewing for the 2024 IECC. So I would assume the next local action would be happening after that point, once all these codes are finalized at the national level for us to be able to reference. Is there more information about using a heat pump for water heating? That you can, a heat pump water heater is a great option. We really recommend that. The efficiency factor for that, now it's using a metric UEF, is well over 2. And from other webinars I've attended, because the gas industry doesn't want to be left hanging, that they're trying to work on a gas version of that too, to make sure that their energy factor is pretty high. But that technology is not here yet. So right now we have the electric version. Yes, a validation of 59 hertz. Okay, so there's a question that does Austin accept the HB House bill, Texas House bill that added the ANSI 301 ERI alternative, requires a 2018 envelope equivalency. The city of Austin, as many of you know, have all these local amendments that are more stringent than the published code. And there are a lot of items that are mandatory that trying to use this new House bill would be problematic. So we would be sticking to what we are already requiring here at the local level. If you're interested in complying with the ERI path, that's available to you still when complying with Energy Code here in Austin. So you would just choose that path for compliance. For the R407.2, is this mandatory? 407.2. Man, you're gonna have to make me open the book. It's 407. No, 407 is the Tropical Climate Region Compliance Path. And if you want to team up and go visit the tropics together, we can do some research, see how well that should work here in Austin. But all jokes aside, no, that's a tropical zone, so we wouldn't be requiring that as mandatory. Because we have mandatory items in the Energy Code here locally, those tables are also amended. So I would look at the ordinance and those tables to see what's mandatory. Are retail places like Home Depot and Lowe's allowed to offer light bulbs which don't meet efficacy requirements? Well, that would be, I think, a federal federal level question that the DOE is, I believe, is struggling to work through right now, because they're the ones that set those standards at the federal level. What was the requirement for cathedral ceilings? So I believe you're asking about out of the prescriptive table. So the table will tell you what the attic insulation requirement is, which is now R49. If you read further into that code of the prescriptive part of the book, it does give some clarification whether your attic has a ceiling or not. Ceilings with attics or ceilings without, which covers the cathedral ceilings, and it does give some allowance there. So I would refer you to that, and I'll try to get the citation here shortly for you. Can you explain when the ceiling and or attic assembly installation requirements in the amendments are applied? Specifically, I don't understand when we would allow the top of the envelope to be twice as conductive if the insulation is in the roof deck instead of the attic floor. Okay, so yes, there are different requirements allowed. R25 is the insulation value for spray foam insulation when you're applying that below deck of your roof assembly, or R20 foam insulation is usually not spray, but a foam product above deck. So there you're mitigating the heat transfer as it initially enters the attic. But the insulation, the blown insulation, is usually getting applied on the floor of your attic, above the ceiling, above your ceilings. There's already been a lot of heat transfer, and then through the roof assembly, and then you have all of this attic space also to retain that heat. So as you know, when you go into the attic, it can be quite hot in the summertime. So it's trying to mitigate heat, more heat than necessarily at the roof assembly with the spray foam. And additionally, the effectiveness of that spray foam, once you get past 25 or so, drops down. So you're not getting any more heat, reducing the heat transfer by applying more spray foam. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, and then back to that possibility to use the word modified in lieu of deleted for modified code. I think that's just jargon that's used at the national level that kind of you pick up on and you start using it, and then you just got to make sure that others have to understand what the jargon means. So that's the code change jargon that's used nationally. Let's see, I started at the bottom and went back up. Let me see. I think we're still, I'll answer a couple more, and then that way we can let Chris talk. And then if there's time left over, we can hit those. Okay. Is a vented roof with sealed attic allowed to mitigate heat transfer in calculations? I think if you're thinking of that kind of thing, maybe you're talking about a diffusion port or something like that, then you just need to come and talk to us. It's not, the energy models for residential are a lot simpler for the user to be able to use in comparison to commercial energy models, but then usually there's less buttons to press and amend and fields to change around. So I'm not aware of that availability. It might exist in an ecotrope model, but I'm not sure, but it's definitely not in an IC3. So you just need to talk to us about that one. And do you have guidance on the ventilation testing methods? So there is guidance in the Resonant 380 standard, and then we are trying to pull together stakeholders, and we've been trying to pull together some data to see what the state of mechanical ventilation testing is here in the city and projects. And then, like I said, we're going to pull together some stakeholders, including some testers and HVAC contractors and hopefully a few manufacturers to meet and discuss and come up with a kind of standardized guidance. So we'll get to some more of those questions here after Chris's talk, but I want to make sure that he has time to speak as well. Let's see here. So Chris Ruddell, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, Chris, is the Northeast Supervisor for Residential Building Inspections at Development Services Department and has over 7 years of experience with the City of Austin. He holds an R5 designation with the ICC. He's a Texas Inspector, Master and Journeyman license issued by TSVPE, backflow certification issued by TCQ, and over 25 years of experience in plumbing trade here in Austin prior to even starting with DST. So a wealth of experience, and he's gonna share a little bit with us too. And let's see here, Taj, if you can make pin Chris as the primary.
Yes. Okay, I guess you can hear me now. I'm Chris Ruddell with the Development Services, one of the residential supervisors over the northeast area of town. I do not have anything to provide as far as any updates or anything going on. I'm strictly here just to answer some questions, and I'm happy to do so. But for sure, that's really all I have.
If anybody wants to ask any residential inspection questions, feel free to post those into the chat, into the Q&A. And Chris, would it be easier if I read you those questions and for you to be able to answer them?
I can see the chat.
Oh, okay.
Chris, while we're waiting on other questions, on that commissioning report question that I posted a couple of links to some PDFs for forms that we have for commissioning at the commissioning plan. Do y'all accept anything different, or does it have to be one of our forms that's DSD done in the field during inspection?
So for commissioning, yes. I mean, we're it's not part of the test report that's required by Austin Energy, but we do accept other reports when it comes to just commissioning.
Okay, all right. So it does not have to be necessarily our form. It can be whatever commissioning plan that they put together is acceptable.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So Chris, it looks like there's a question about, it says exactly information is required on site for residential energy inspection.
Yeah, I'll respond to it. I'm assuming asking all information. I will answer that.
So I think maybe he wants to know like what on-site you guys are looking for during an energy inspection. Like when you're out there in the field, what do you guys look for?
Well, we're looking for the approved set of plans, any documents that were provided to plan review to be included with that. If it's prescriptive, then I mean, if everything is like it should be, then we don't require anything additional until finals when we're picking up the duct and envelope leakage test. As long as you have your approved plans and you built the approved documents, you don't need anything additional unless you use spray foam, and we would want the spray foam checklist and the ES report on that. The caveat to that, I mean, I guess to be clear, the window stickers should be on all of the windows at frame inspection. As far as documentation, there should be nothing more than what I stated.
There's a question we keep getting asked for two-stage poly seal before installation. When we are using spray foam, does the new code require the two-stage poly seal prior to spray foam insulation systems?
So what I mean, I'm assuming what that question is in relation to is you're using spray foam instead of traditional, and at frame we are to be checking that first stage and second stage is done with poly seal, and if the foam installers, spray foam installers are the ones who do that, then obviously it's not going to be done at frame stage. So I'm assuming that's what that question is in reference to.
Yeah. So you would be checking for that, because you don't know if they're going to use bat or blown or spray foam at that framing stage when you're checking for polyseal. Is that correct?
What we do with the volume builders, because they're pretty much on top of the radiant barrier, so you can look up and make that determination. But with most, we have to ask or inform them that they should have put radiant decking up if they were going to use traditional. But since we don't know, and it's not really outlined in most plans, we have to ask. And at frame, we're looking for that to be done. However, because they don't want to waste the trip of having the spray foam guy come out twice, it's not done. So we just write it as a deficiency and move forward. It's nothing that would stop you from being able to insulate.
Okay. Let's see here. There's a question about IC3, which I can answer that. Yes, that's only for residential. I have not heard of anybody doing anything for commercial. Usually those are more complicated modeling systems, so I don't imagine. And plus, they're out of the university, so the previous question, that alternative is IC3, and it's from Texas A&M. So I think that was a Longhorn that asked that question, because since they referenced UT. But just with any state entity or schooling entity or anything, funding is always a consideration. So if you have a bunch of funding, maybe you can fund them and they'll do it for you. There was a question about how are the solar ready provisions inspected? Chris, is that something that you can answer?
I cannot at this point, but I can get back to you on that.
Okay.
I think we did a pretty comprehensive review in commercial plan reviews. So most of the, checklist and items that would be, effectively inspected are done in plan review and then provided to inspection. So if that helps any.
Okay. There's one that came through the chat where somebody asked about third-party testing documentation updates for 2021. I can speak to residential. I've updated those testing forms for the approved testers, and those have been sent to them, so they would be using those for 2021 projects. I would make sure it's clear to them whenever you retain those individuals or those companies that this is a 2021 project, as any other time when there's a transitionary period. And as far as who reviews those third-party tester reports for here at AEGB on the residential team, we request those reports for those projects, and review the results to make sure that they're passing. And as far as I know, and Chris can clarify, but DSD also collects those third-party energy code testing reports and to ensure that the project is passing those tests.
No, I mean, due to COVID, we've switched, everything is required to be uploaded to the permit.
Okay. So those are collected through Austin Build and Collect.
I mean, I believe we forwarded that to y'all, and so we changed it a while back to where they would have the one on site. That's great, but the requirement is it be uploaded to the permit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that answers that question. Chris, what's the most common issues that inspectors are finding in the field in regards to 2021 IECC?
I would say currently it would be air barriers and the attic access, the drop down stairs not being compliant. And sorry, the another one is the, trying to understand cathedral vaulted ceilings and drop down, attics where we need those insulation baffles and where they need to be, and having everybody understand what we're trying to achieve there.
What percentage of houses being inspected with sealed attics? That I don't know. It's not anywhere near a simple majority, that's for sure. Would you say the same thing, Chris? The amount of houses that are using sealed attics?
I would say, probably less than 20%.
Taj, if you want to put the survey slide up so that people know where to go to fill out the survey. Great. So in the chat is a survey link as well. Taj is, wrong button. Taj is going to be posting that up for us, but the link is also in the chat. If you could please go ahead and let us know how we did. We'll try to fill out some of these questions as well. Or I know some of you that are asking questions, I know you guys quite well, so I'll try to reach out to you. And we'll kind of go from there. But yeah, if you can fill out that survey and tune in for the next next AGB seminar, which I believe, Garrett, that was in March, correct?
If we have just one more second as well, I wanted to also mention that we have a new web form for submitting documents to for both residential and commercial plan review. Both are active. So if you are not familiar with the changes that have occurred recently with the intake process, just be aware that we don't use the email attachment form any longer for submitting documents. It's a pretty nice user-friendly interface that'll allow you to select your filtering questions, and I'll walk you through kind of getting your items submitted. So just wanted to prepare you for that if you haven't seen it yet already.
Well, if there's no other questions, feel free to, like I said, fill out the survey link, and we will see you guys at the next seminar.